second.
Thank you, Tim. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Approval of consent agenda. The only item on the consent agenda this evening is the approval of the April 4th, 2023 Board of Education regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion, Kim.
Thanks, Kim. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh, I heard Sarah down there.
That's fine.
Any further discussion? Nope. All right, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous, thank you. Audience of citizens. Do you have anyone who wishes to address the board this evening, either in person or online? Nobody in the chat yet. All right, thank you. Then I'm excited to get to the Portland Public Schools Spotlight. We have two spotlights this evening, and it looks like first up is Mr. Hirschham from the middle school with the 8th grade capstone personal interest projects.
Thank you guys so much. Get the PowerPoint open, and then I will introduce. This evening I'm here to present two really exciting things that we have implemented really to start putting the vision of the graduate into action. The personal interest project is something that we'll share significantly in just a few moments, and I'll have some students here tonight to share as well. And we're also going to talk about what we've done since putting this into action, which has included looking at one of those really important things that start at middle school and go through high school, which is how does this apply to student success plans? So I'll be talking this evening about how we've used the vision of the graduate to develop two really student-focused tools on how do we develop those soft skills, for lack of a better word, or dispositional skills that our students learn, not just the math content and the ELA content, but their collaboration skills and their communication skills. But I don't want to present it to you this evening because I have far more skilled individuals to do that. I have two fantastic students I'm excited to welcome up, which are going to be Lucas Kirsch and Anna Piasek. And I have two wonderful teachers who have helped lead these efforts, both with student success plans, which will be Corey Toussaint in a moment. But first, I'd like to introduce Alan Steckloff. He is our 8th grade team leader, social studies teacher, and the first person whose door I knocked on when I got to Portland saying, I have this idea, I want to get started, and I need some help. So I'm going to introduce Alan Steckloff, our 8th grade team leader and social studies teacher, to introduce tonight's presentation.
Hello, good evening. I didn't know you knocked, kind of just opened the door. All right.
That's fair.
All right.
I didn't really, I had the key, I just kind of
Yeah. All right. Well, I was going to say, on our first meeting with Chuck after he was hired, he expressed his desire for Portland Middle School to develop an 8th grade capstone that would encapsulate the middle school students' skills and demonstrate their readiness for high school. Originally, the capstone was to be a more traditional research-based paper that would be delivered through my social studies classes. But at the suggestion of Eric Martin, we looked at the Skills 21 platform on Ed Advance. This unique platform was developed during the remote learning. It was perfect for a capstone or a digital portfolio, where the students would demonstrate a variety of necessary skills through a personal interest project. The personal interest project allows for the student to select their own project of interest that's centered on one of the following. They had to either learn a skill, make a product, solve a problem, or do an activity. Our personal interest project was designed for each student to have both myself and an advisory teacher who would be able to guide them through the process of selecting a project, determining a timeline, and creating a finished product. Every 8th grade student was given time to work on their PIP in select social studies classes and in our mentoring advisory periods, as well as the expectation to work outside of school. One of the greatest accomplishments of this project was to develop time management skills in an 8th grader. I emphasize that there, it's hard to. Finally, students were assessed on a rubric that was developed from the vision of the graduate. Throughout this project and at the end, each student should have been able to do the following. They should be able to articulate their thoughts and ideas effectively for a range of purposes and audiences. Would they be able to use a range of strategies to develop and try out ideas when attempting a solution? Act on my own ideas to create new, unique, and meaningful products? Learn and purposefully use media tools to gather information and share their ideas? Set personal goals with clear criteria for success and measure their progress towards achieving them? and manage time and materials effectively in order to meet both others and their own deadlines and expectations. And as Mr. Hirschon said, better to see it than me just tell you about it. So I want to invite up Anna Piasek first to walk through the actual PIP platform and what she did.
Hi, I'm Anna Piasek, and I'm going to present the PIP creation process. So students worked on 3 sections called Discover, Create, and Share. Each section had a variety of assignments that helped the students plan out their PIP project. And at the bottom of the screen, you could see screenshots of our final PIP projects. The assignments in each section helped the students learn and practice different skills that aided them in the construction of their final PIP and their presentation. For example, in the Create section, we completed an assignment that helped us make deadlines for each stage of our PIP and taught us personal time management. Using these skills, we put together a final project presentation using the PIP website template. This included the 3 stages of assignments, a trailer, and our final presentation. At the PIP fair, we had the opportunity to present this to parents from Portland Middle School, which is what Luke is going to talk about. So I'm going to hand it over to him.
Lucas, while you're setting up, I'll just share that we host on our Portland Middle School website. I see that there's security access to the trailer we have can't be shown right now. Those all will be accessible on our Portland Middle School home site. You'll see there's a link to PIP projects from last year. In about a month or so, as we get towards the very end of the year, I'll be updating that with all of our 8th graders from this year. Once we've gotten all of them completed, we still have a few more stragglers that we're tracking down. But we shifted our timeline this year to account for that. So those will all be available for the public to view.
All right. Hi, I'm Luke Kirsch, and once it came time that we all had finally finished our projects, we got to present them in something called the PIP Fair. The way this worked was we all set up different desks around the school, located anywhere from outside to the library, and it allowed people to display to everyone, including their peers and their teachers, about what they worked on throughout this PIP project. An example of a presentation would be right before you here with my poster board, but some other examples of things that people brought in were live animals, baked goods that they made. I know one person brought in a punching bag to display some of the physical skills that they learned. And it was just a great way to show how far they've come since they began their project. Now, because we were so spread out across the school, it never felt too overwhelming, and really let you fully present the total process of going through your PIP to each and every person who came along to your project. So the way that the presentations would work is that you would walk them through some of the things that you learned, such as time management, inquiry skills, community, agency. Those were some of the 3 skills that we based this entire PIP project out of, and overall it's just a great way to display your PIP for everyone to see.
One of the reasons I really wanted Lucas to come up here tonight is if you look at his poster board, it's a perfect encapsulation of what we were trying to accomplish through PIP. It was less about what is your final product, and Lucas made an absolutely gorgeous, if you can see it on there, artwork piece as his final product. But you could also see all of the drafts that came before it. It's far more about the process than the product. You know, how do you time manage your skills? How do you build off of your most recent attempt to try and make it better? We really wanted kids to come and find out, how do I take something, my own idea, all the way to conclusion? And how do I fail and change that idea and make it something that's feasible? We had plenty of students who changed their ideas halfway through. You'll see project proposals that don't look anything like what their final product is. And that's what happens in life. You have a germination of an idea, you start down a road, you find that you have obstacles, and you adjust it. We have kids who wanted to do an entire children's book in a foreign language, and found that ended up being a lot more than they could take on, so they shifted it to some greetings.
One of the key things is they had to reflect on their process throughout each, so really learning from the reflection process and not the end result was probably the biggest takeaway, that you can reflect, grow, and move forward.
So with that, we're going to add, so the PIP project spent a lot of time on this year, and we wanted to talk about what's the next step. How do we start building 7th graders these skills earlier? So that brings us to Mr. Toussaint, who's been doing some really interesting work with the Unified Arts team this year.
All right, so yeah, like Mr. Hirshon said, we wanted to not just engage 8th graders in the vision of the graduate, but we wanted to engage 7th graders as well, and make this a whole school effort, something that they take part in and they see themselves in. So from the students' perspective, before we started to implement what has become our student success plan, we kind of had 3 big vision of the graduate questions that are very important to us at Portland Middle School, and they are, do you know what classes you want to take when you go to Portland High School? Do you have any idea of what you might want to do beyond high school? And do you know what those key skills are that we want you to leave Portland Middle School with? And as you can imagine, right, and kind of comes with the territory, but shrugs are a common answer to those questions oftentimes when you're talking with students. So we want to try and clear some of that up. And so myself with the Unified Arts team, the mental health team, and with Mr. Hirshon's leadership, we created what is an interactive student-facing student success plan for our Portland Middle School students. It is a master document that will track what students have enjoyed most in Portland Middle School. And the best part is it's completely up to them what it looks like. It's meant to be a collection of what they enjoyed most at Portland Middle School so that they can plan better for their future. And I do have a student example. If we could click on the student example, that would be great. This was an individual, a 7th grader, who gave me permission to show their example here today, just sort of what it looks like. So page number 1 is what's kind of known as the cover page of the student success plan that illustrates those key skills that we want students to have. And really, page 2 is when it starts to get pretty fun. What you can see here is that this student has already started to track some of their favorite skills in the classes that they have been taking at Portland Middle School. So this is the 7th grader. And on each of those classes that are color-coded, that student has started to actually link assignments and experiences that they loved most while taking those classes. And the color coding actually applies to those skills in the vision of the graduate. So if you'll scroll back up for me. Anything that's color-coded red emphasizes that they learned a lot about their community skills, yellow being inquiry, and green being agency. So if we scroll back down to page number 2, you can see that this student feels that, for example, in their art class, they were able to gain a tremendous amount of community value there in the what they attached. You'll notice that they also have a blue tint to them because the students are actually actively hyperlinking things from those classes in there. So if you were to, for example, and there might be some sharing access because I made a copy of this to sort of detach it from the student success plan. But if you were to click on one, it would open up the assignment to what that student did or a journal entry about something they really enjoyed. And this is going to be something that we're piloting with 7th grade right now. We sort of started it up at the midway point after we built this whole document from the ground up. And they are really sort of letting us know how this is working for them, what's working, what's not, what's good about it, what's maybe a little bit needs to be changed. And this isn't just going to be about that. If you scroll down to page 3, we are also emphasizing their career exploration in 7th and 8th grade and really getting them to think about what they might want to do beyond Portland Middle School. And then down on page 4, we are also having them track their social emotional growth as we go through our social emotional curriculum in advisory blocks and beyond. So this is supposed to be an interactive document that these students make, and that is really something that they can personalize to whatever they like.
Our hope is that in the future this will lead to things like student-led conferences, and really one thing I talk about frequently in the middle school is I want this to be a place where we put our student work first. Our students own the school through our student council, through our activities. The voice of the student is the most important part, and developing student voice is one of the most important aspects of a middle school learner. So really using this as a resource to help them reflect and build those reflection skills and ownership skills of their work is what we're hoping, both through the student success plan, through the implementation of our PIP project. We do a great job as educators of reporting out and analyzing how students are doing in terms of their math and their ELA scores. This is a way to measure other areas of our student progress, because we learn so much more in school than our math and ELA skills and facts. This will be a way to really see how we're building people and all the skills that they have to develop as we go forward with this. Our hope is we're using the same platform. Eric Martin is one that brought Thread Advance to us, that we started last year at the middle school, and has now gone forward into the high school for how they're aligned to Capstone. So it should be a really nice alignment from what they're doing in PIP to Capstone, and we're hoping the student success plan that we're doing in the middle school will align really well. And we took a lot of insight working with counselors to make sure it will line up really well with what high school will do with Naviance and the work that they'll do going into high school. So that alignment component is really important to what we're doing, so we can bridge to our brother-sister school that's right next door to us in Portland High School. All right, with that, I'll invite our students back up. If there are any questions from the board.
I was just curious, Luke, would you mind bringing up your thing and just briefly walking us through what it is?
Yeah, we put it up here. We couldn't quite see it because it was kind of cut up. Yeah.
Peeling off a bit. Well, anyway, my particular PIP project was basically drawing local scenery, because I'd always loved drawing, but I never really draw anything realistic. If anything, I was just.
Luke, would you mind standing at the mic so that
yeah,
folks
sorry.
online can hear you talking?
But I had only ever really drew stuff from like movies or TV shows I watched. So, and one of the main points of the PIP Fair was to present the process of how you came to do something. So I marked my process with numbers, as you can see, where I started with taking the photo of the local scenery, actually just at the end of my street, so very local. But that was just the basis of what I wanted my drawing to look like. If you move over to 2 there, that was my first rough draft. I was basically just trying to get the proportions right. I'm not too happy with how that came out, but I think that was necessary because it allowed me to adapt in my next rough draft. And I don't think I could have gotten the proportions just right if it hadn't been for that next step. And that's all part of the process, learning from your mistakes and learning to do better in the future. So for my third rough draft, I went to a standard size of paper, and I really just wanted to get the details of the trees right, experimenting with different textures. And that was my next part of the process, of course, where moving into my final draft, this is what my project had been leading up to, and I wanted to make sure everything I had worked on beforehand was displayed here in my final project, including my color, my texture, my proportions, and overall I'm pretty happy with how it came out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Anna, do you want to tell us about your project too?
Yes.
Luke, stay up there, so that might be more questions.
So my project was learning Morse code, which is something I've always wanted to learn ever since I was little, and I thought the PIP was a perfect opportunity to learn it. So I just wanted to demonstrate a little bit of what I learned and say thank you for you guys in Morse code. So thank you guys so much for having us. This is a great opportunity.
Are there additional questions for Anna or for Luke?
No, I'm good.
Great job.
We're proud of you.
I want to say really quickly, I had the chance, and Chuck, thank you for inviting us, inviting the board. I was delighted to get to come. There were so many presentations. I think I probably only caught 20 of them, but I saw both of yours, Anna and Luke, and I came home so excited about what I experienced at the middle school, and I was telling my kids all about it, and my 5th grader was like, she was just hanging on every word. She was like, they get to do what? They get to, and I was describing, in particular, Anna, I was describing your Morse code project, and it was very cool to see a 5th grader who is already looking forward to coming to the middle school and getting to experience what you just experienced. I think it's, what a cool thing you've done, and well done to both of you, and really well done to all of the 8th graders. It was so impressive.
And it was something that we hope to improve each year. What we had this year was, and I loved all of my 8th grade presentations from last year, but this grade took it a step above. And my hope is next year is going to surpass you. I mean, this has continued to improve each year. Shifting the timeline was a big jump we made for this year. The variety of presentations was good. I talked with Charles quite a few times and checked board policy quite a few to make sure that how the kids were presenting was going to be acceptable in the school. Animals were outside for a reason. Food was given to teachers only. We were very clear in how we were making sure these things were legitimate for school, and the students wowed me. So I shared with all of you ahead of tonight's meeting a link to some exemplars. You'll have access to the whole grade once I have that fully completed. Please feel free to take a look. Your Portland CT email should give you access to everything. And again, thank you all for having us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say this is really authentic learning because this really puts, if middle school kids are struggling to figure out who they are, and this puts it into a strategy for them to figure it out, and it's authentic learning. It's not just math and social studies and reading books. It's putting in real life. It's great. I can only look forward to more.
Yeah. And I'm so struck by the variety of projects that were presented. Kids were really exploring the things that excited them. It was amazing. There were fiber arts things. There was music related projects. There was someone had built a table. There was someone had explored making makeup and creams and stuff like that. It was just such a huge variety of projects. The kids were so creative in exploring, identifying what they wanted to learn about. Very exciting.
Physics of a curveball.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
No, I didn't get to that one, but I heard about it. Yeah, very cool. Thank you so much. That was an awesome
Well done.
spotlight. All right, and then next up, we've got our CAVE Leadership Award recipients, which is also very exciting.
Thank you. This also want to come up?
So we've come to that time of year where we get to pause and reflect and acknowledge some outstanding leadership and service and engagement and all kinds of terrific things that our students have done. So I'm very excited tonight to introduce you to this year's recipients of our CABE Student Leadership Awards, and I'm going to let Mrs. Lawson do the honors, introduce them to you, and then we'll shake their hands and maybe get some pictures.
All right, Mrs. Lawson needs her glasses. The first recipient of our 2023 CABE Leadership Award is Dorothy Riley. Dorothy, would you come up, please? So while Dorothy's here, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Dorothy. She is a hardworking and conscientious student who is a leader both inside and outside the classroom. For the past 3 years, Dorothy has maintained a level of academic excellence in rigorous honors and AP classes while also being very involved in our school community. She has served 3 consecutive terms as the vice president for the class of 2024. She's one of the student representatives chosen by the superintendent to report to the Board of Education. She's a solid leader in DECA, Distributive Education Clubs of America, and a state officer, right?
Yes.
A member of the National Honor Society, a member of the Portland Public Schools Equity and Inclusion Coalition. In 2022, Dorothy was the recipient of academic honors in English and Spanish 3. She was the Hobie Youth Leadership Conference representative and earned service awards for her work with DECA, the class of 2024, and Portland High School's Gay Straight Alliance. Dorothy has aspirations to pursue a higher education in human resource management or related fields. Congratulations, Dorothy. I want you to smile for Mr. Bernard. Why don't we get on either side?
Hey, what one?
Yeah.
Stay right there. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Congratulations, Dorothy.
Our second recipient of the 2023 CABE Leadership Award is Michaela Wilk. It's my honor to share with you that Michaela is a dedicated and diligent student who epitomizes the characteristics of a strong leader: confidence, creativity, vision, and integrity. She excels in honors and AP classes and is a role model for her peers. Michaela is involved in a number of extracurricular activities, including DECA, National Honor Society, varsity cross country, basketball, and track and field. Last spring at our awards ceremony, Michaela was recognized for her outstanding service and leadership to DECA and to the class of 2024. Michaela is described as incredibly dependable and always reliable. She participates in nearly every fundraiser or class of 2024 activity held and leads consistently. Michaela has a vision for her future that includes several options, including accounting, athletic training, and criminal justice. Michaela was also a student leader this year in our 4th annual Go Baby Go competition, where she helped our little ones get the mobility in the cool cars so that they could pursue their own independence. So my congratulations to Michaela Wilk. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for that. Next up, we have our student representative report. And we do. We have Dorothy live in person. Is Leah joining us online?
I think she is correct.
She does have a tracking today.
We're happy to have you in person, Dorothy.
Thank you. Okay, I have more than no amount of announcements. Okay, so as of right now, people are starting to get their invitations to PHS Awards Night, which will be on May 25th at 6 p.m. AP exams started this week, and they're also next week. People are very stressed, and we're doing good so far. Just a reminder that DECA tie sale is going on, and it ends this Friday, May 5th, and that we need at least 30 orders so they can actually start making our ties, and that we have a little over half the amount that we need. And yesterday was commitment day, so the seniors were wearing their college merch around the halls. And then now I have some capstone announcements. The juniors are currently doing their capstones, and here's 2 ongoing ones. From now until May 5th, Lily Tablione is holding a sock drive in the main office. The socks will be donated to the Worldwide Lighthouse Organization in Manchester, Connecticut, to the homeless. Homeless shelters often request sock donations as they are highly needed and appreciated by the homeless community. They keep the feet safe and protected from the unsanitary ground and are easier to access and distribute than properly fit and supportive shoes. Every 6 pairs of socks donated is equivalent of 1 mile in a foundation race that Lily will partake in based on donors' requests. That is Lily's capstone. And then my capstone that's going on right now. So this week, my capstone is called Momgrams, and I will be selling 3 different flowers, Alstre Maria, roses, and tulips, and then I will also be selling cards for people to give to their moms on Mother's Day. And the reason why I'm doing this is because moms do so much for us every single day, and I feel like sometimes people are like, I don't know what to get my mom, I want to get her the perfect gift, the best gift, but really just the fact that you took time to find something to show appreciation for all that they do for us in our everyday lives is what really counts. So I'm hoping that I can help out people with that a little bit and spread some joy and put some smiles on moms' faces in the Portland community. And that is all I have.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any
Questions?
questions, folks?
Where can we access your capstone
That
project
is
information?
a wonderful question. I know that Portland Youth Services, they have posted on their Instagram. I can ask if they can post on their Facebook as well. You can find it on the Portland Class 2024 Instagram or the Portland CT 7 through 12 Instagram, or you can see me and I can make sure to get Dr. Britton a copy so he can distribute it to y'all. But yeah, so community members, you can buy too. It's not just a school thing. I want to get this to everywhere in Portland.
Thank you.
Okay, well that was the fun part for sure.
Those are tough acts to follow.
That is a tough act to follow, which is sorry, Charles. We've got our superintendent's report.
All right. So for everybody else, if you needed to head on out, you're welcome to stay, of course, but otherwise, thank you for coming.
It's all ripping from here.
So first thing I would just put out, the enrollment report is included in your board packet. Pretty stable, right? Started the year with 1,225, and as of the latest report, 1,230.
So we went up 7.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the
from
same
last-
thing.
Yeah,
So that was a big jump.
it was a big jump. Yeah.
This late in the year.
Yep, and you'll hear about, well, you'll
Okay,
see.
we'll hear about it, okay.
Yes, but.
More to come. Okay.
Some
Well,
curveballs that
good.
came at us this year, no doubt. But we're up 7, otherwise, they're pretty stable. Any questions about the enrollment? Couple things. I just wanted to reflect a little bit on an experience I had the week after April vacation. I spent 2 days in Weston, Connecticut, as part of it's called the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. You'll hear shorthand NEAS, NEASC. This is the accrediting agency that accredits all public high schools in the state of Connecticut, actually public, private, parochial high schools in the state of Connecticut. Portland High School is, of course, accredited by the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. They've dramatically changed their accreditation process. It's actually now a 2-step process. It involves an initial collaborated conference, which is a 2-day site visit, and then 2 years later, the big visit. So it was a great experience. I'm really glad I went. It really deepened my understanding of the process and the standards. And then interestingly enough, I followed up right away with Ms. Watson and the team that she's put in place at the high school to begin the process of preparing for a collaborative conference coming up at the high school. I mentioned that I know that Ms. Watson is going to present soon to the board on what that process entails and give you an update. I just wanted to start by saying I think we're going to do fabulously well. We have plenty of work to do, aligning to what I think are some really high quality and rigorous standards. But we have everything we need. We have a strong leadership team in place at the high school. And I'm looking forward to this process. I believe in the NESC. I think it's a good opportunity for schools to get feedback on ways to grow and improve. And it's certainly going to be a centerpiece of what we're doing at the high school for probably the next 3 years minimum.
Is it still a 10-year process, a 10-year cycle?
Yes. Yeah, broken up now.
Okay.
Different.
Different. Okay.
So,
So when is our 10th year? In other words, when is this all due, the final thing due? Like 2020?
So we believe our collaborating conference is either going to happen next spring or fall 2024. So we need to start planning now for one of those 2 days. Then after that visit, they leave and they give us a report, and we have 2 years to work on the recommendations contained in that report, and then they come back. So I guess that would be spring 2026 or fall 2026, where it's the longer visit that they come back, and we will have demonstrated our alignment to the standards based on the feedback we get from the initial.
And there was also a 5-year feedback, correct, about the 2018 and 2019.
Yep.
So 5 years into it, they looked to see where we were, and we got the,
They're keeping us on it. They're gonna do a 1-year review, a 3-year review, and a 6-year.
Oh, really?
That's been changed. It used to be 2 year and 5 year.
Okay, oh, all right, so more, all right.
And so the visit that you got to participate in, was that an initial visit or the 2-year follow-up?
It was the collaborating conference.
The first visit,
First
the
visit.
beginning of the process.
Exactly. I went to Weston High School. It was great. Great team, good process, great professional development. And I walked out of there feeling really good about Ms. Weston and what she's done so far, and feeling really good about Portland High School. Not that there's anything wrong with Weston. It was wonderful. But I think we're really well positioned to have a great experience. So more to come on that. If you're available, I would love to have you join us Friday, May 12th at 10 a.m. at Brownstone. Tricia is putting out some invitations today. We're very excited. It's going to be a ribbon cutting ceremony for the new solar array on Brownstone. We're going to have all the students come down. We're going to have some thinking some sun-related music, think Here Comes the Sun, or something along those lines. You know, we'll have an educational component to it where we'll talk to students about how solar works and the social importance of solar. We'll cut the ribbon, we have a nice plaque, we'll have some dignitaries. It's going to be a great morning. Figure from 10 to 11, so if you're available, please come on down. That's Friday the 12th. And Trisha's going to be getting the invitations out. Did you get them out today?
They're already out.
Yeah, they're already out.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Over there. Great. So that'll be fun event. Big moment coming up Monday, May 8th. If you're available, is going to be our hopefully final facility study committee meeting. So I did speak with Lou Pear today, and we have added an audience of citizens to the agenda. So it is Friday, May 8th, 7 p.m. We meet in the Portland High School Library. Over the April vacation, I wrote a nice, I think, draft of the report that reflects 2 years' worth of work. That report was shared with Lou and our architects to kind of fact check, which became draft 2. I've shared the second draft now with the full committee. So Dave has it, and Ed has it, and everybody has a week now to sort of read and digest it. If I were to print that report out with all of the appendices, it would be many hundreds of pages. So it is in a Google Doc with clickable links. My hope is that we get that to the committee on May 8th, we talk about it, assuming that that report is embraced, which I think it will be because it is just the facts. I mean, it's pretty, there's not a lot of opinion in it. It's pretty much what we've done for the past 2 years. We do then need to plan either late May or June a joint Board of Education, Board of Selectmen meeting to present the report. I don't have a date for that yet, but I will be working after May 8th to both get feedback on the report and per the Board of Selectmen resolution, schedule a Board of Education, Board of Selectmen meetings for the committee, Lou, and for me to present the report.
Will other board members get the report before we do it to do?
My feeling is once it's approved in public session, it is a public document. At that point, it could be widely distributed and would no longer be in draft form. So folks could have a chance to read it before that joint meeting at which it was for them.
So that's the 8th at 7?
7 p.m. Portland High School.
At the high school.
We mean the library. That's our front of it. Which is my next note. So don't forget, Monday, May 8th, budget referendum. We're going to put the word out in our Friday emails. I'm going to get the word out over email. We have some people doing some phone banks and making sure to remind people to come on out and exercise the franchise. So that is an important day. Hopefully we will be in a very good mood come Tuesday, May 9th. Be determined. Just have to recognize and mark that last week was Secretary Appreciation Day. This Friday is Nurse Appreciation Day, and then 2 weeks, Teacher Appreciation Week, right?
Monday.
Monday, sorry. So there's a whole bunch of special events planned for our teachers. But if you happen to bump into a teacher next week, let them know how much we appreciate the work that they do. So week filled with appreciations. Finally, the last one I have for you is I got a nice text from Dylan today. The equipment that we need to relocate our board meetings back to the high school library and still have this kind of format with the online accessibility has been received. We still need to install it. So likely our next meeting will still be here, but hopefully our meeting in June we can, should everybody desire, hope we do, go on back to the library and we don't have to crane our necks and we can actually see each other and be back in our.
Is there going to be a lot of having them to set something up and tear it down every night, every meeting?
Dylan, do you want to talk a little bit about what you envision?
So partially, yes, a little bit. We'll have to pull some of the streaming equipment out of the studio and put it in. But we, between Alicia Miller and myself, we've dedicated a spot on the counter for a lot of the sound equipment. The camera equipment for the Zoom will be installed in the ceiling, so that's always going to be permanently there. There'll be one dedicated for the table setup, one dedicated for the where the podium will be. So the only real setup will be bringing in our Sling Studio, the wireless component that allows us to stream, which we have a mobile cart set up because the whole purpose when Dr. Britton purchased it was for mobile streaming like extravaganzas and graduation and things of that nature. And then just setting up the tables, which custodial usually does, and then putting things back into position for the school day the next day.
I was just thinking out loud here because part of the facility study told us how much square footage is in that high school that's not being used. Would it behoove us to maybe find a spot, a room, someplace to create a dedicated location where we could put the equipment, you would have to move it in and out all the time? Just a thought.
I don't think it's that, once it's in, it won't be that labor intensive to set it up, break it down, when we're done. Is that true?
Part of it's right now we only have the one Sling Studio, and that's a bit more of an expensive purchase. But I mean, it's almost like a small router, so we just pick it up, carry it, put it down. And we should be good
Okay,
to go.
I just remember you guys moving wires and things all over the place all the time, and figured, it's a lot of work.
Some of that's been cleaned up with the other equipment that's been
Okay.
purchased that we got in. We have a new snake that runs all those cables through one, so we don't have to wrap each of them.
Okay.
And those will be housed in the library permanently instead of having to put those all the way back.
Okay, good.
So it'll be less, and it's just pulling them out from underneath the table, getting them there, and then just. I think last time when we did it without the Zoom, it took us about 15 minutes to get everything
Okay.
down, put back into the studio and up and running. So with most of that equipment stationary, it would not even take that long.
Well, thank you for your help on that.
Anytime.
Yeah, thank you so much. So looking forward to getting back to the school. Okay, thank you, Charles. Stephanie. We have our assistant.
Oh,
Not part of the meeting that we at least I wasn't right after the good news.
That's right.
I mean, as everybody knows, every month when I come in, it's back and forth. We're good, we're not good, we're good, we're not good. And I want to stress, if you remember back in February, when we were in a larger deficit than usual, then we got the news of the excess cost, which then we got news we're not getting anymore. So every day when I say it's May 2nd at 7:30 p.m., everything changes. It was upsetting to get that information on a Friday. Charles was at the Weston visit, so I didn't even bother him. I waited till Monday. It was a shock. It was a shock to see, what our new allotments were going to be. It's not a huge difference, but it is in the grand scheme of things, for us. Right.
For any district, that's a big
Right.
That's significant for anyone to find out that they're losing that money that they were planning on in April, with 6 weeks left in the school year.
And I reached out to, the CASBO, I reached out to, so many other people to say, was I naive to think it was actually gonna come through, all this kind of stuff. And it was split, it was 50-50. Some people kept their allotment of what they thought it was, originally budgeted at. A lot of them did not. Because I've never experienced where something was said, which is surprising for the state, that they didn't actually come through with. You know what I mean? It's like the lunch fund, it went away for a month, but then it came back. So I was hopeful that they were gonna be in alignment. And I pulled all the history, and in 2020, 2021, we got 81.3%. 21-22, we got 81.98%. So it wasn't like it was that off, but to go and see now 76.3 was just kind of shocking. And also remembering too, our threshold changes every year. So back in 2021, our threshold was 75,954. We're up to 86,310 that we have to cover. So now we're getting a reduction in percentage. We have to pay more. And I understand the reasoning behind it, because they do want to be fair to everybody, and I get the tier system, but again,
There's a combination of things, and I did talk to Sheila after, because we might have a
Mhm.
conversation. My understanding is that more districts had more students who were in the system, and so what they did was they reduced our share because there were more students.
Statewide,
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
I know. So the best we can do is just come up with a plan, and, Dawn and I have been talking, Charles and I have been talking, reaching out to the schools, and I mean, it's all listed in the memo. I'm not gonna read it over, if anybody has any questions on what we're doing, I'm looking at other areas where, to move some funds around, and hope to free up some LEA funds to help cover the difference. If anybody has any questions, I can try and answer them.
Is there any, I'm sure all the schools are pushing back, is there any possibility that they could reverse it or change it?
If there,
There's conversations going on, but there doesn't look like there's going to be any funding from.
if there's not enough money, because there's nothing they can do.
Well, I mean, the state's got this huge budget surplus, so there is money, but it's just not being allocated. I guess the secondary question is, what percentage did we use or dollar amount for the budget for next year? What did we factor in for next year? What did you put?
Dawn, we do 75, right? Or 70?
70.
70%.
Yeah, we always, in the budget, we always go very conservative on
Right.
Oh, okay.
reimbursement.
Good move.
And it does fluctuate, but this year particularly.
Well, I mean, look at the last 2 years, 81.9 and 81.3. But apparently it was very disproportionate throughout the state with who was getting how much. And that's why they implemented the tier system, to help, because it goes by the Anglic rank. So wherever you're ranked by your wealth is how you were distributed. But they just reduced the tiers from what we thought they were going to be to the new amount.
Stephanie, I have a question about, all of this is really clear, and I appreciate this document, I appreciate the way you laid it out for us, and the 4 steps that you laid out to mitigate this deficit all make a lot of sense to me. My question specifically is around step 2, the applying IDEA grant funds. Consider being around $52,000, reprioritize funding, reprioritize from what?
So IDEA grant is a 2-year grant. So in each year you reapply. So typically most districts, they want you, or the state wants you to spend 80% of your whole allotment. Portland's been fortunate enough to not have to spend any of the year 1 of the following year. We've always lived off of it's current and carryover. So like our carryover funds usually get us through the whole entire year. We never have to dip into year 1 of current, where most districts go 80% into the next year. So our carryover is $270,000. And then we'll have another $276,000 to work with also that doesn't expire till June 2024. So each year you get a new allotment. So it's the same thing with like Title I, Title II. They're all 2-year grants. We've never, just 2 years ago, we started doing just a small portion of it because we were putting the paraprofessionals to it. And it started off when I was here, it was 5 paraprofessionals. Now it's up to 10. So I try to keep as much as I can within the LEA to not have to go into year 1. There's nothing wrong with it. We should be using that, and Dawn may be able to talk to that more, but we should be utilizing it because it's showing that we're tapping into the resources that we have. And we've never been reduced funding because we don't, but, Dawn gets the little emails every month that says, please spend down your money, we want you to spend the money. And even, talking to Tom and everything, we're going to try and still not have to tap into as much of that because I draw that down once a month. So I can wait till the very last minute if we have to utilize that. So if I can get it from closing POs and utilizing other things first before that, like that, instead of being step 2, that might have been step 4.
Right. Because that's funding that we're relying on in next year's budget.
But then we also still get another year again. It all rolls together. It always ends up being about $200 and something thousand in the end. We just use less of it sometimes, if that makes sense.
But it's a hedge, right?
Right.
Okay. So in some ways, this is what we're hedging on. This is what we're hedging for, right? This is
Right.
keeping it there for a moment like this. Okay.
Oh, even with our title grants, we've never had to use current year. We've always used the carryover, the second year. So that this might be the year where we may have to. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. Most districts do.
And you're anticipating that step 4 too also, the applying, is
That's what I'm trying not to do. That's what I'm trying not to do.
That's kind of last step if we're,
Right.
if we're really in, you know, wanting to make sure that we end the year not in a deficit.
Right.
That we would potentially tap into that $200,000 that we set aside for next year's budget.
Yeah. Like, I'm the most comfortable with the 79 because we're gonna have to spend that anyways, so that's fine. You know, like I said, there's a freeze, there's honestly not much to freeze in the schools at this point. It's all just basically electricity, gas, all, you know, all the fixed things that we have no control over. So whatever, just seeing how when the bills come in towards the end of the year, you know, it will kind of help with that. And that's when, like I said, I kind of wait until the last minute to pull the plug on those last few things, so. And, you know, we have a meeting in 2 weeks, I probably won't have a better idea then, but the June meeting, most likely I will, because the last payroll will have run. Hopefully some bills will be paid, so. After we see those substitute bills that come in, it's up there.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, you say things like the substitute bills, well, that's why we raised the substitute headings.
Right.
Because we wanted, I mean, the bills reflect the filling, right? I mean, so, yes, they're bills, but they reflect a much better year this year, and I see automatic heads, than we had in previous years, where it was very complicated to manage safety of building when you didn't have the people to do that, spreading people out so thin. So, yes, the bills are a challenge, but they reflect
Their needs.
service.
Yeah, they're all needs.
So you do say something.
All right. Are there questions for Stephanie or Charles regarding this?
No, but I would just, to Dave's point, I think if enough districts, you know, and the superintendent association and they make a point of collecting anecdotal information, I think it certainly justifies at least requesting that they balance the funds and not leave districts wide open like they did. I think it's unfortunate, like if enough people make enough noise, then maybe there could be an appropriation, but it doesn't look like it. So I would just say, we could pay attention and provide, statewide associations with that anecdotal information to direct the lobby, will go to the legislature and make it, but I think that's, they need to work on people that are doing the work every day.
That's all we can do.
Very much, Stephanie.
Welcome.
All right, then our director of student services report. Please lead us. Good one.
That's for you too. Those springtime colors. Tricia has this and she'll email it out to you, but she got it late, so I just want to make sure you guys have a paper.
So as you can imagine, I'm going to talk a lot about the implications and some follow-up to things that Stephanie and Charles spoke about. But before we begin that, I just want to update everybody on just on the census of what student services numbers look like right now. The first column in this report shows the total number of students with IEPs in the district. So we started October with 230, and we're in May with 269. So we've gone up by 39 IEPs throughout the year. Our outplacements started in October at 14. We're up to 16 outplacements right now. Special programs, this number is kind of skewed. These are the special programs within the district. So these are things like our harbor program, our bridge program, the ABA work that gets done at Valley View. So these are just some, it's just an interesting number for me to see how we're servicing our students. But the October number, I believe, is skewed because I don't think it included the students in the RISE program, which is at Gildersleeve. It's our kind of our life skills program at Gildersleeve, and then the LEAP program, which is the life skills program at Brownstone. So it's, like I said, those numbers are a little off, but we are up by 5 from February in special programming. Magnet schools, we just have, that just means students that are Portland students that go to a magnet school and require special ed services. We only have 1 student in that place right now. Pending students are students that have been referred to special education and they're in the testing process.
So we still have right now across the district, we have 8 students that are in that process. 504 plans. 504 plans usually are not the same students as students having IEPs. And even that number's gone up significantly from October at 83 up to 94 now. And our EL student population is up a little bit from the fall. We're at 57 students. So I know somebody had asked at some point just to be able to see change over time. So it's just helpful for us to look at all of that. But those are just the bare numbers, where we are, where our funding and our programming and our people and our energy are going as far as special services. Just a few department updates. The first one is, I'm sure you've heard, seen in social media, and if you have children in the district, you know that we're deep into Smarter Balanced Assessment right now and the science testing. And just to remind everybody that there's a lot of background work that has to be done because 100% of our students take some form of state assessment. So that's from our students with all kinds of obstacles that get in their way. 100% of our students take some form. The CTAA is the Connecticut Alternative Assessment, so that is for a small amount of our students. We're not supposed to have more than 1% of our population, our student special ed population, to be taking the CTAA. So most of our students are sitting for, they've either sat for the SAT or the PSAT at the secondary level, or they're taking the Smarter Balanced. So there's a lot of legwork. I really applaud our staff, from our special ed secretaries to all of our special ed folks, making sure all those accommodations, school counselors, making sure all those accommodations got into the system, into the TIDE system, and as they're rolling out and starting to take their Smarter Balanced testing, those accommodations are in place. It's really pretty neat because everything is in the platform. So a lot of your accommodations of text size and contrast and color and things like that that help are just loaded into the child's system when they sign on to take the test. Last links testing is done. That's our EL students. They finished up since I've spoken with you last. And students that, we don't have the scores back yet, but they usually come back before the end of the school year. And students that meet mastery on that, a level 4 or a level 5, are no longer considered EL students. I mean, we know they're still learning the language, but they've mastered a level of proficiency that they are not identified as such. Extended school year plans are in place. For July, we anticipate about 60 to 70 students on the special ed side of that. And I know our principals are working to plan for literacy and support otherwise for students that are not coming through ESY. CDAC, this is this is an outfall from our CT SEDS program. You've heard myself and many of our staff members talking about how much fun CT SEDS roll-up was this year and what a pleasant experience. The CDAC numbers were finally certified by the state last week. So usually, and just for you guys that may not know about it, but that comes off the October 1 count, and then the special ed data system goes through and cleans up any mishaps between information, missing dates, things like that. And usually before we break for Christmas break, we were certifying the report at the state level. We just certified last week, so it was quite a process. And I'm glad I don't work for the state, because they just had to come up with all kinds of systems to work between all the different ways to pull data. But we are done with that piece. IDEA grants, you heard Stephanie talking about the IDEA grant and how we're going to look at hedging into the year 1 of the next year's grant. But right now we're writing the grant for the fiscal year 2024. That'll be due next week. So I'll be working with Stephanie and we'll be talking about how we're going to write for that. The allocation went up, not as big as a percentage as the allocation went down in excess costs, but the allocation for IDEA has gone up a little bit. And then this is an interesting fact. As I was looking at our census, our preschool numbers have gone from, and these are the students that are in our preschool programming with an IEP. This isn't the whole class, where you have some typical peers in each section. We went from 13 in August to 27 right now. So we've more than doubled where we were as far as students with IEPs. And it's the kids that are coming in with really significant impacts. And you really think about this is coming to the end of our COVID babies. A lot of these kids were born while we were in full shutdown, and we didn't take kids to story hour at the library or to visit grandmas and grandpas and do all those things that help our children in their first couple years of life. So our kids are coming, and this isn't just Portland, this is across the board, but kids are coming in with significant needs. So it's just an interesting number to hold on to as we think about where we're going. The number always goes up because we start with a set number in September, but then throughout the year, preschool is the only place where we do a rolling admission. So when a child turns 3, they're eligible to enter the program. But it's still a significant number, so. Thank you. And then the last thing I just want to talk a little bit about, I want to just give some color to what Stephanie and Charles were talking about with some of the things around student services and some of our spending. As I was sitting back here, I was listening and I was thinking, how they reallocated funding. And I feel like, gosh, darn it, we do a really good job of being frugal. We do a good job of building programming here in the town, so we're not having to send kids out of district. I feel like we're doing all the right things. But then I feel like when it comes to passing out the funding, we kind of got the short end of it. And it's not a political statement or anything like that. It's just kind of one of those things of how it rolls out. So just an idea to keep in mind. But one of the loose cannons in my budget is what we call the purchase services. And that purchase services does include things like tuition, but we break the tuition out for outplacement into a separate line item. We also break transportation out into a separate line item. But all of those things that we have to pay somebody else to do, that our own staff and our own facilities can't carry out, are purchase services. So I just did a little bit of a description just to kind of bring us along and be thinking about where we are. It's been a tough year for purchase services, and we're not done yet. And many of the stories I've shared with you, we've had to contract for a speech language pathologist until we were able to hire our own. Our occupational therapist that was in-house had left, so we were contracting for that. There's a lot of purchase services that we've had to do, but then there's some other mitigating things or some impacting things. The first one I speak about a little bit are evaluations. That's a huge amount of money that we write checks for in my department. The bulk of our evaluations get done by our staff, our special ed teachers, our speech paths, OT, PT, they do the evaluations on students. But then there's always special things that come up. And these evaluations, it's just like you or I, if we go to our doctor for a physical, it's got a set rate. But all of a sudden, if we develop a cardiac issue, well, we're going to a specialist and it's getting much more expensive. And there's less people around that do that, so it's not as competitive and like that. So we, as a district, as a town, we have to pay for a lot of these specialized evaluations, and they include things like bilingual evaluations. We've had 5 students this year that did not speak English as their native language, and it was hard for us to discern which language was their more dominant language. So we really had to evaluate in both to get to the bottom of whether their learning issues were a true learning disability or their learning issue was a language disability or a language issue because they're learning 2 languages. Those evaluations to be done by somebody else are very, very expensive. Neuropsychological and psychiatric evaluations done by qualified doctors in those fields. Those they add up really quick. Specialty areas, such as specialists that work with students with dyslexia, communication disorders, audiology, hearing issues, autism. There are times when our team or our parents, as part of the team, become stumped because the child's not making the progress, despite everybody's best efforts and the best scientific application as possible. They're still not making those efforts, and we have to reach out to somebody else. And then the last one can be under all this umbrella, and it's called an independent educational evaluation. And if you remember, a couple years ago, we reviewed the policy on IEEs because it became, there was some new legislative changes that guarantee these rights to parents. And there's times that a parent, it doesn't happen a lot in this district, but where a parent comes in and says, I really don't agree with the results that your team got on this evaluation. I want an independent eval. So that's another area. So those are just some areas when we think about that purchase services. That's probably the hardest part of my budget to pin. It's like pinning Jello right to the wall. It's moving all over the place. But that's just a little description of why it's like that. Another area that comes up a lot, and we've had a tremendous amount of this year, are homeless families. Just a little bit of background for you is when we have a family that comes, and I'm the McKinney-Ventos liaison in the district. When they come to me and they say, you know, we've lost our home, we're staying on so-and-so's couch, or, you know, we're staying with my grandmother until we can find something else, we do everything possible to keep children in their home school when it's feasible. But that also means usually transportation. It's not so much an educational cost like paying for tuition for them, it's much more the issue of paying for transportation. We usually split it between the district where the child is staying and where the child is going to school. Or where they originated from, which is usually where they're going to school. So it's usually a shared expense, but it's pretty prevalent this year. We have 11 students that are homeless right now that we're doing transportation for. So I mean, these are all things that we do as a district and as a town, and we want to make sure everybody gets what they need in order to be successful. But I just want you guys to understand sometimes when we talk about the expenses that just balloon out of nowhere sometimes. That's what happens. I'll tell you know, and the last one I have is other specialized services, and I'll tell you a quick story. This morning, I went to go see Chuck and his team at the middle school, and I walked into the middle school, and there's a wheelchair sitting outside the office. My first thing is, oh my gosh, who's hurt? But then my second thing is, oh my gosh, who's in a wheelchair now needs wheelchair transportation? Because that's an exorbitant cost. But it happens. You know, it's sports season, the kids break a leg, and they can't bear weight, and they need a wheelchair van. Something like that totally changes the budget for our transportation. It's really a purchase service at that point, because you've got a technician that's driving some kind of a wheelchair bus and making sure kids get on and off safely. Other examples of that could be consultation with specialists. I talked a little bit about evaluations, but even just sometimes it's bringing in a psychiatrist to talk about a child's new identification or need. FM systems for our kids to be able to hear what their teachers are saying because they've got hearing issues. You know, their parents are going to take care of the hearing aids through their insurance, but the FM system is a device that's required by the district. So just a little bit, I mean, it's not gloom and doom. I like when I have opportunity just to be able to make sure everybody understands what the heck Dawn is doing with the budget sometimes. But those are some things that come up. So you have that report. If you look it over and you have any questions, let me know. And any follow-up questions from tonight, I'll be glad to answer them. I won't be at the next board meeting because I'll be out of town, but I'll see you again in June. Okay? Mm-hmm.
I'm a little confused when you're talking about the homelessness shared expense. So if you were saying something like they go there, if there's Portland people that are homeless that are going to another school district,
so it goes both ways, Dave. It's a good question. It goes both ways. So I live in Portland. I go to Gildersleeve School. I'm in 2nd grade, and my family loses their house, but we can go stay over in Middletown at the shelter. So we want to keep the child here in their school in Portland, but we need to get them back and forth from the shelter. So it's really a shared expense at that time. So I call it Middletown, or Middletown calls me up, and we say, hey, we've got this kiddo. It's a shared kiddo, and we split one drives one way, one drives the other way. So some of the transportation costs are for possibly a Middletown kiddo that's homeless and staying here in Portland but needs transportation across the bridge. Or it could be one of our kids that's over across the bridge and needs transportation back over. So.
I assume this is somewhat of a short-term thing? You don't do it for multiple years?
No, it's usually, one thing that's important to note, because I know Stephanie and Olivia, my administrative assistant, were talking about it today. When a student is deemed homeless, they are deemed homeless for the whole year because they kind of need that support. But then all my homeless families, and usually it's been a much smaller amount, I recontact again in the summer and say, what's going on. A lot of these families are going to tell me now that they're in the process of getting into housing. So by the summer, they'll be ready to start their new school year in their new school where their new home is. But yeah, it's always deemed on a year-by-year basis. There's other protections that go into place. The children, whether the parents qualify or not, automatically qualify for free and reduced lunch, which we know is an important thing when we go back to having to pay for lunch, and other things like that.
The other question is, it sounds like you communicate with other districts, but are they experiencing the ebbs and flows that you do, or Portland does, that in the beginning of the year, the more students in kindergarten or preschool, the middle of the year where we're seeing a jump and things of that nature. Yeah. The reason why I'm going down this road, Mr. Council, but to you is the word out that we got a pretty good program here and people want to come here for that?
Yeah, but a lot of that, like the birth to 3 is just a natural because we have rolling admissions. Some of the other things are when you think about a child going from Valley View, where we're just beginning to learn how to read, by the time they get to Gildersleeve, now we've been able to, they've had good survey support and they've had good opportunity to remediate without going into special ed. So now the kids that really have a true learning disability are rising to the top and we need to identify more. So Gildersleeve has a higher rate of identification and the good news is if we treat them early, we can usually get them, get them to back off of an IEP. But some of those are the nature of children throughout the school year. But then some other things like the birth to 3, the amount of children coming from birth to 3, that's a phenomenon going on across the state.
Dawn, I have one question. During your time in Portland, where have you seen an increased and sustained level of need for external evaluations? And are there any where that would beg the question of can we bring some of those services in district without contracting them?
Yeah, probably the biggest one that we've seen be really sustained and really unfilled has been the psychiatric evaluations, because there's times where we don't need anything other than a psychiatrist to be able to, look for safety, make sure that the child is getting what they need on a psychiatric level. And there were times prior to COVID where I started to talk with a couple of the psychiatrists that we worked with to see about getting them to, have a contract with us versus, when we need testing, but more on a consultative basis. Right now, it's really, really hard to get a child psychiatrist to commit to that because it's, unless you're a huge district, I think, and it's, they're able to pass off more of their private service to come in and do that. But yeah, that's something that we looked at pre-COVID. Right now, I think we're still, this year is tough, and I think next year's probably going to continue to be tough, but should be starting to come back down. Okay. Anything else? All right, great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mom. All right, moving on to new business. First, we have our 3 Gildersleeve grants that Dr. Burton's going to talk us through.
These are exciting. So we did share them out with you. The first one is from our library media specialist at Brownstone. Correct me, but she has asked for some books to continue to support, some nonfiction books to continue to support the reading and curriculum. Reviewed the curriculum. I know spoke about with Mr. Searson today, and it's something like we can certainly get on that request for $1,000 worth of new books for the library at Brownstone. I think we should probably do these one at a time. So sure. If there were any questions about here or on here to answer any questions that you might have about the first grant, which is for books at the Brownstone Library.
Yeah, I have a question. Okay. Just reviewing the list and looking at what's written in the grant, if you're saying that these are all books that are in the curriculum, that are part of the curriculum, and you can use the written material to support the curriculum, but a number of these books, 11 of them, are rated YA, which is young adult books, which are all, from what I was able to find, that's like 12 to 18-year-old. It's young adult for that. And these are 5th and 6th graders, which are 10 and 12 years old. So without even getting into what the books are, why are we, how can those books be an integral part of the curriculum for 10 and 12-year-olds when they're all rated for 12 to 18, in some cases over 20 years old? And also the grade level, too. If you look at this, is just looking at Amazon, not even going so crazy. Like, I mean, the actual people who publish the books say many of these books are for, 7th to 9th grade, 6th to 10th grade. They're higher level books. It seems that they're not well placed in a middle school.
Yep, absolutely.
Mike, do you want to join us?
Yep.
Thanks. Mine's not in It follows the
Good?
Good.
Yeah, that's a good question, Tim. One of the strengths of the reading program that we use, and we'll continue to use aspects of it moving forward, is sometimes, depending on the unit, it relies on choice, right? And it also relies heavily on using that specific student's reading level to give guaranteed differentiation. And in 5th and 6th grade, and I'm sure Ryan would agree in 4th grade, and I'm sure Chuck would agree in 7th and 8th grade, there is a wide range of reading levels, and we keep track of those reading levels throughout the year. And it falls from students who are below grade level all the way up to students who are well above grade level. So I think the reason that Meredith looked at these books in collaboration with our ELA teachers is looking at, you know, we're not just dealing with students that are only reading at 5th and 6th grade levels. We're dealing with students that are reading, you know, sometimes at a 3rd grade level, all the way up to Z plus, you know, heading into 8th, 9th, even 10th grade, depending on the student.
You know, I can understand that. But and I guess maybe if it was just like a random selection of books, but these are pretty much all like social justice.
Yeah.
books and
So,
DI and
yep. So that,
theory and
yeah. So that depends on.
Why would that be the focus?
That's the unit. That's the unit that they're focusing on.
What's
So
the unit?
it has to do with it's social activism.
Okay.
So what they'll do is they'll look at, take somebody like Malala, right? They'll look at her and what she's done, learn about that through content, and then maybe use that to write an argumentative piece, right? But in order to do that, they need a lot of resources. And through using those resources, now they're learning about how to cite source material and build a 5-paragraph essay.
My understanding from reading this application is that Ms. Juliana has worked to fill gaps in what is currently in the library, right? This list is filling gaps.
Absolutely. Yeah, she worked with not just what she had in the library, but she also worked with Stephen Jewell, who's our reading specialist, based on what he's seeing that could fit in well. Any other questions?
No, I mean, it's, I just don't think that, I mean, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's incongruent to me, you know, that's not even getting into there's 7 books that are K through 3.
Yeah, and that's part of the challenge where it's a wide range.
Trying to catch up.
Yep. Yep.
Are there other questions about this application? To fill gaps in the Brownstone Library? Okay, so Charles was has provided with some motions. If anyone, if there's no more discussion around this, I'd like looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend that the Portland Board of Education approve to submit the Gildersleeve grant for a book vending machine. That's what
A little bit out of order.
Oh, no, sorry. Oh, sorry, so it's number 2? To recommend that the Portland Board of Education, the approval to submit the Gildersleeve grant for nonfiction resources to support the reading and writing curriculum at Brownstone Intermediate School.
Is there any further discussion?
I would just say still that I think when you have books that are rated for 18-year-olds, that you're bringing into a school that's 10 and 12-year-olds, that's still, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know what else is out there, but to me, these books, I just disagree. I think, you know, in Gildersleeve, it's up to them, it's their grant, they would be the ones ultimately to judge that, but, you know.
I completely hear what you're saying, Tim. I think when we get to a book like that, where it's written for teenagers and beyond, it's not something that we would simply just hand to a student. That's something that we would absolutely, you know, make sure content-wise and material-wise is appropriate and work with the parents.
Well, and I see, it's not like you're ordering 50 of them.
Right, yeah.
It's just,
Right, in a library full of books.
Yeah, no, yes.
And just as a reminder, and I feel like this is a special situation because it's a grant application.
Right.
And I think
something called a book vending machine. And it is exactly what it is. It's a vending machine that you put tokens in and can select from a variety of books. Mr. Hirschon's intention is to use this, and this is in collaboration with our Harvard University Middle School. I thought it was very clever, as part of the PBIS system. So students would, or through good citizenship and effort and being good students, earn tokens that they could then use to cash in for a book that they would purchase out of the vending machine. I think it sounds like a really cool idea. Happy to present it to you. And if you're watching, we look forward to you obviously make it more consideration.
Are there questions about this proposal? Are there questions for Jeff?
Yeah, maybe I missed it. What was the price tag on that?
$8,140.
Pardon?
$8,140.
I looked it up online too, but, and apparently they're all over the place. School
Yeah.
districts have been doing this for like years.
I never heard of it either.
I never heard of it. It seems.
Yeah, I can talk to
I tried to find some reviews.
We got a picture of all the gym equipment.
So I can speak to it a little bit, and I discovered it through my my network in the Shoreline Principals meetings that I go to a couple times a year. I think it was a principal from Guilford who had put me onto it as a grant that he had written. And the idea was twofold. One is, as you guys have heard all year, I've been really actively trying to get rid of cell phones and get rid of a lot of other elements, and really struggling to find the thing that incentivizes a middle schooler that's not their technology. We had one, but then, which was food and cookie rewards, but that's something that by our own policies we cannot do, and by the health groups we said, oh, that's not working anymore. And you know, I worked with our food service providers. And said, yeah, okay, we have to get rid of that. So what incentivizes the middle schooler? The tchotchkes don't do it anymore by the time they get to this age. So we were trying to find something that's really tangible, and the idea is it also hits the theme that we want our kids to understand, is that reading is a reward. So giving kids an option to get a book for their positive behavior. So instead of just punishing negative behavior, we're focusing on rewarding that positive with a reward that is reading. Gives us the opportunity to purchase books. That'll do that, the purchasing of books in collaboration with my library media center specialist. I don't have a pre-designated list right now because this isn't tied to our curriculum. This is specifically for students to own and take home as their personal books. The tokens are really the thing that we have to keep refining every year. And my plan for sustainability is to run book drives each. The initial one would be to purchase books in this initial grant funded period, and then to each year run book drives through the school to try and continuously replenish the book vending machine. But the initial cost is significant for the machine itself, the tokens, the components, and the initial purchasing of books.
So the ability to, as I read it through, the ability to get a token, I know there were different opportunities. And is that throughout the entire school day, the classroom?
So we have a system that I'm hoping to bolster. We have a system this year called Shoutouts on the Hilltop, where last year, when again, I was using cookies as I shouldn't have, and I was purchasing other elements I was purchasing other things that were gift giveaways, like LED lights and things like that. And I have an element in my budget under my student services that's not the checkbook, that is for, PBIS rewards. But I was finding less and less incentive through those rewards, the small things. So I was looking for donations from parents at points to find things that I could raffle off each month. So the idea is having something a bit more sustainable, something a bit more continuous to do with the school. And the idea would to have very similar to a PBIS system where students get X number of shoutouts on the Hilltop, they can turn that in for a token to use in the book vending machine. So that would be the plan.
Where is the book vending machine going to live? I can't remember if I read that.
Yep, my intention is right outside of the library. We have a good amount of space up there between the gym and the library, a really nice bulletin board area, and some wall space there that it could live. I thought about the lobby, but I don't want to take up space because, by the way, the art show, the art month is going on and it's beautiful. I don't want to put it there because I don't want to interfere with that beautiful art display that happens each year. So I was thinking up in between the gym and the library.
Are there questions, comments, additional thoughts?
Well, that's where I looked at the grant. Something that could be interesting and new to do with grant.
Shall I
This is motion
move
one.
to make a motion to recommend to the Portland
Sarah,
Board of
go ahead.
Education approval to submit a Gildersleeve grant for a book vending machine at the Portland Middle School?
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah, second. Thank you, Tim. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? All right. Thank you.
Okay, and then our last one here, this is a big one, right? So those of you who, I included some pictures, but certainly would invite any of you to come take a look at. I don't even know what it's called. We call it the weight room, but it's abysmal. The grates are rusty. I mean, it's just a bunch of stuff. But I know we actually had a student come forward as part of the capstone with some ideas about upgrading the weight room. And that kind of kicked a lot of this off. So we got our PE and health teachers involved, Cardona involved, Ms. Lawson involved, and I consulted certainly and recommended including pictures of the truck for that. So you can see what the current condition is. It's just not acceptable. It's not good. And it's not used. Never used during the school day. And our sports teams use it rarely after school. They have to wash their hands with the rust all off. It's not good. But this would be a wonderful thing for us to do. I just find it, I love it that we might have a new track, a new weight room, and a new wellness policy all coming up for next year. The world would definitely align, 100% support this. This also is here to answer any questions or feel free to correct me if I'm not describing the weight room accurately. But this would be a very professional product and something I know that our faculty staff is use during the school day, part of flex, before school, daily workout, after school. And I know our sports teams would use it. All of it.
I just love that that's how the application is written, that it's not just, this isn't just something for athletic teams to use, but they really take a picture of being used by the entire school community, including the faculty and staff. It's really exciting.
Technically, is it a weight room or is it a fitness room, a fitness center?
I don't think it's we need rebranding.
That made it sound more appealing to the people.
Yeah.
I have a question. What was the process of figuring out what equipment to get, and was there any like usage patterns looked at in other schools?
That should be part of the program, weight room upgrades, so it's done, it's the health facility.
And that's really it in a nutshell, is that it was our PE and our health teachers that help drive what we were looking to purchase so that they can use the facility to enhance the existing PE and health curriculum. The eye is always towards lifelong fitness, and what you find in many traditional high school PE programs are more like team sports, team games, which don't generalize typically as well to life after high school and college. So the selection of the equipment under Mr. Cardona's direction was really what do we need to support the curriculum as we continue to enhance that for kids.
Any questions?
I just, if we approve this, will anybody on the board get the
As soon as you show me your insurance card, your medical insurance card, we'll make sure. Yeah, I think it'll be a wonderful enhancement.
I know it said during flex period students, so would there be an opportunity for students not on sports teams to use it at other times besides those flex periods?
Through PE, through health, and through election of flex would be the top three. To start, yeah.
We wouldn't be able to have students in there unless it's supervised. So those are the times that we have staff. So if this thing takes off and grows, might we consider future some stipend for a PE to come in before or after school supervisors? Sky's the limit. Let's build it. Hope they will come and see we get the grant and how much legs this has going forward. And I think right now our vision for it to start is
That's all I was thinking, was like how Kate said, you know, for those after life, you're not always on a team, you're going to the gym, so it'd be great for those students maybe who aren't on a sports team but want to just get some fitness in, making a fitness club after school or something.
Absolutely. The sky's really the limit with what we could do with that. And I'm sure the staff will come up with cross-curricular applications for it as well. It's a great place for movement breaks for kids who need that. You can brainstorm and go on and on about ways to go. It's a much-needed facility for the high school.
How many people would this accommodate at one time into this? Or what are we planning for? Because obviously the classes might be 14, 15
You know, like,
people.
you look at that, there's a nice render, kind of like this. Diagram here, you can sort of see, you know, if every piece of equipment was used and some students can be weighted, you kind of get a sense, but here's 10, that's the number 10 pieces of equipment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11 pieces of equipment. I didn't know if there, so that's like a class, with students then weighting, taking time off.
Yeah, I would certainly defer to the specs from the manufacturer, but I think it would comfortably hold a class or a team.
So if it becomes that popular.
I'll be back.
Additional questions for Kate?
Thank you.
We're looking at motions number 3 here. Anyone care to make a motion?
To recommend the Portland Board of Education approval to submit a WC grant to upgrade the weight room at Portland High School to a fitness.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sarah. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Unanimous? All right. So, that took care of item A. Item B is policy, the first reading of policy 3230.1, federal grants and award administration. And as this is a required, is a mandated policy that we were unaware that we were missing, we are going to ask the board to consider acting on this evening. So Charles, can you give some more background?
Sure, Stephanie can help too. So Stephanie and John White were in the midst of their triennial.
We're having our procurement audit for food service. And it's every I guess you can say triennial, but it's every 3 years. We got wavered because of COVID, because the first one was my first year, 18-19. So then we were supposed to get it last year, but they postponed everything because they're so backed up. So ours now is coming up. But it's virtual. They're doing everything virtually. We have to upload all these documents now. And there's 3 pieces that wasn't there last time, and it's the written code of conduct, which I think this is the code of conduct, right? With and the way we purchase things, our purchasing procedures, and then this other document with a bunch of questions that we have to answer that make sure that we don't purchase a lot of things out of our lunch. They're auditing our lunch fund, and the only thing really we use our lunch fund for is to pay Sodexo. And a lot of districts that have a wealthy amount of money in their account, purchase equipment out of it. They pay for repairs and maintenance out of it. I looked, the last time we did that was probably in 2008. So we're going to be pretty easy because we don't have a lot of purchases, but we do have to have everything in line and in place as to if we were eventually be able to do that, how we would do it. So.
This is a policy that I think 2015 came out, and actually it was in the cave update that they have been missed. Too much to do, but we do need to have this in place, and we have this happening now, so I'm hoping.
May 24th.
Objections to it, whether you fast track it, like this is nice, so that we can have it and vote it on it, and complete that.
Did everyone have a chance to read the policy? Are there any questions? The policy committee did vet this last week at our meeting, is that right? It was last week, so we read through it, and the policy committee felt comfortable bringing it to the full board for a vote.
Do we just have to insert Portland on the front page to make it officially ours?
Yes.
Got it.
And Tricia will get it in our handbook, so it won't say cave at the top.
additional questions after our conversation last month? Questions, comments?
I just have one minor point. It was page 25 in the PDF of, we're supposed to assign a contact person responsible for triennially assessing. And so, do we need to do that before we approve this? Or can we approve this and let that person be assigned? Well, it's page 25 in the PDF.
Is it part of the regulation?
Gosh. I don't.
So R is regulation, so if it's
Yeah,
after
R 6142.101M.
So generally, we don't put names in because when that person may.
Yeah, that's what, we like the
Yeah.
language superintendent or designee.
Yeah, so I think that we might just need to say that.
Where is it on that page, you said, on M?
Yeah, and so it's the next page after
Oh,
you
this
see
one.
M.
Yeah.
The big underline with the,
So what we'll do is we'll put in there superintendent or designee.
Mhm.
Yeah, we like to keep it generic.
Yeah.
We've done that in the time, like I'm still finding Philip O'Reilly and Grundy.
yeah.
There's only one policy, Title IX policy, that has to have Don's name on it, somebody's name.
Right, yeah.
Good to have done that.
Yeah, great, clean that up.
So, motion?
I do, is there any further discussion? No, then I will do the motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve policy 6142.101 and regulation 6142.101 with the change on page M to reflect the superintendent or designee as responsible for the triennial assessment.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sarah. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Well, that's been a long time.
Yes, it has.
Make that motion, because I'm sure it goes away.
It's like, holy cow, too busy growing up.
Sorry to
With a
disappoint.
plan.
Got listeners, symbols, all right. It's nice to check that one off for sure. Okay, the next item is the 2023-2024 school calendar April vacation update. And you'll remember we discussed this last month, that we were off by 1 week from the districts that passed their calendars, approved their calendars after ours. We found ourselves off by a week. The discussion last month was around moving our April vacation for the next school year up a week to April 8th to the 12th. I believe Tricia did some research for us and listened to the meeting and there was no real rhyme or reason. There was no compelling reason to keep it during the date that we set it. But we do know that this will alleviate pressures not only for students, not only for teachers in Portland who have children in other districts, but for teachers who live in Portland but teach in other districts and have children in our school system. So that said, if there are other questions, other thoughts around this calendar, I'm prepared to act at this point.
One thing, this, I think we talked about this, but this doesn't impact in a negative way the Disney band trip next year. It still leaves them, I know it shuffles things a little bit, but, yeah, it's still good.
Any other thoughts or questions? Is anybody willing to make a motion around this?
Is it on that list?
It sure is.
You're gonna share the, motion? I make a motion to recommend to the Portland Board of Education adoption of the revised 2023-24 school calendar for 2018.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Thank you all. We'll move on then. The next item C here is an update on the
Yeah, so I just wanted to, I did put this in the email, but I want to clarify that, one, we are not joining the commission member. Two, we are not even applying to the commission member. We haven't even been invited to apply. Okay, so all that happened was shortly a week before, 2 weeks before April vacation, we received an email, which was a little surprising, that we would be able to express interest. Right? And that caught us a little bit by surprise. As you know, we've been working for several years with the school improvement plan. And of course, as the state is often wants to do, it was, and you have to tell us by this date. Right? We only had like 3 weeks to express interest, and one of those weeks happened to have been the April vacation. So we had to move very quickly, and one of the things we did was have a conversation with the state about what this was, because neither Eric, Ryan, have ever had experience with this. And what we heard, and it have to admit, it was a sort of eye-popping sum of money when they said, the schools that are a part of this have the opportunity to receive up to $850,000 in support. Right? So now you have to put yourself in my shoes, right? I heard $850,000 and was absolutely not going to make a decision to not do that, right? Like no to $850,000 for 4 years. Right? I'm turning down as part of my project $3.2 million, right? Without having any further discussion. Right? But I also wasn't comfortable saying, well, let's just express interest without any discussion. So my process led me to, well, we should talk about this at the curriculum committee and bring it to the full board for discussion about even expressing interest, which is like even before step 1 of this whole thing. Right? So that's where we ended up last week. We didn't take a vote. We committed to nothing. All we've done is signal back to the state department, you have our attention, right? We are expressing interest in learning more. We don't know yet if we're even going to be invited to apply. There's a likelihood that we won't even be invited to apply and all of this was moved. Right? If we are invited to apply, then it's coming back. Right? It's going to then come back to the full board, and I would invite people who have experience with this, invite people from the state to talk to us about this, and we will make a much more informed decision. And likely I would need a vote at that point to even apply. So I just wanted to make sure it was clear on both the process, right, that I used to kind of not turn down this funding or make a decision to even consider it without engaging you in a very preliminary discussion. And then also know that I'm not sure exactly when we'll hear back, but if I hear back that we would be encouraged to apply, more conversations will need to happen both through the policy committee and the full board, at which time we would leave no stone unturned in understanding all of the implications of it before we made a decision. Of course, by then, one of the big implications may well be, would we even be encouraged to apply if Gildersleeve wasn't a school for the long run, right? I mean, there's so many layers of this that we have to unpack. All that we did last time was simply signal an expression of interest with no commitments beyond that. Hey, we might be interested if all of the things lined up and we were comfortable with the process. Does that make sense? I just wanted to make sure that was clear. We haven't taken any steps beyond responding within a 2-week notification that we might be interested in this.
And I would just add on that because this all happened really quickly, after our last meeting, I was able to touch base with each board member to just kind of see how folks were feeling about it and to gather our questions. So I wanted you all to know that, and I would say too that this, as this group always does, there was a big list of very thoughtful, very good questions. I sent that list to Charles and shared with him, and if we end up in a position where we're able to move forward with this, I just wanted you to know that he'll be prepared to come back and share inserts and information related to those questions with us. But Charles and I agreed that maybe it wasn't the best use of our time to spend a big chunk of time this evening dealing with that, not even knowing whether or not the state will be inviting us to move forward. Maybe
say, I think one of the things that I had shared back is that it's, there's hooks with that. If we go down that route, we open ourselves up to really losing control over how that operates and what goes on in the school. And it's a troublesome notion that we can lose that how we operate the schools.
I think that's a concern, that is
Right.
a concern that a lot of people share for sure, and that's something we would want to gather more information on if we're invited to move forward. That will give that a lot of consideration and understand what that would look like, what that would mean for us.
And if those, I think it's a good plan moving forward and to continue.
Right, and we don't have a timeline in terms of when we can expect to hear back. I mean,
I maybe late spring, summer. I don't know exactly when we'll get it.
all right, so if everyone's comfortable with it, we'll kind of table this, the commission can work until we hear back about whether it's even a relevant thing to discuss. All right. If there's nothing else on that item, then we will move to committee reports. A is curriculum. I can give a quick update that we, on our last curriculum meeting, Stacy and Kim and I and Eric had a great conversation with Kate Lawson. Thank you for joining us. She gave us an update about Portland High School assessment practices, and we discussed Kate coming back to address the full board really around the accreditation process, and that we would be looking to have a conversation about Portland High School assessment practices as part of the bigger picture. Anything you want to add to that, Kim?
No, that was great, and yeah, Kate, just really thoughtful comments, so thank you for all of that information.
All right, policy.
We'll continue to meet, I think we have a meeting about a month with regular schedule on Wednesday. We'll give you an update what we want coming. So we'll
Yeah, we're working our way through the new April policy
The nice thing
update.
is we're caught up and moving forward.
we are
So,
caught up. We're just waiting for that onslaught of whatever the legislature decides to pass on right in July.
All right, Meg, personnel, we had a meeting this past week to discuss health benefits packages for our non-union folks, and we'll be continuing that conversation at a meeting next week, so we'll probably have an update at our, for the board's consideration at our next board meeting. Buildings and grounds.
We had a very productive meeting on Wednesday this past week at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we heard the plans for some of the summer work that's being done, and update on the track, which is moving forward, as you can see, and should have a July 1st start. And just we'll do this summer. Not enough money to fix everything we want fixed, but certainly things will be repaired and replaced as needed. Jay's doing a good job. Scott and Charles overseeing how we are
My comment was gonna be the same thing as Bob J. is incredible because he's not only finding creative, inexpensive ways to do things, but he's also bringing the staff up. Like he said, $12,000 to paint the lines in the parking lot, he could train his staff to do it with $500 of paint. He's not only giving them something beyond just cleaning up classrooms, and they also change all the filters in school too as well. So they're doing above and beyond, which I think is great.
And there's a lot of work during spring vacation as well. Updates to filters and things, so it's really good. And just say, he's doing a wonderful job. We lost Paul Langston, who was the head of facilities this past month, and Charles attended the feeding services of the senior cemetery. Paul has done a wonderful job for us, so he's been as many years as I can remember, and so it was a loss to the community as well as to the school community. being passed, but it's going to go in a different form than what we were all hoping for. And there'll be more information so annual meeting takes place on 17th of May at 11:30 in our offices.
Nothing significant, and tomorrow's our next meeting.
Meeting on solidarity. Remember what you said?
I was just looking at it. Oh, next meeting, I'm sorry, 5/9, May 9. I wasn't able to go to the last one. I think I'm gonna have a conflict. I'm going to the meeting on Tuesdays.
Okay.
I'll go when I feel it.
Yeah, sure. In the meantime, if there is anybody else on the Board of Ed who has been looking at Tuesday evenings and wants to swap off with Tim or take turns or whatever, if there's interest, reach out and let us know. Equity and Inclusion Coalition.
And that is meeting next Monday for its quarterly meeting.
And School Facility Subcommittee,
May 8th at 7 o'clock at high school. And maybe if I'm meeting a 3-year journey with all of us. I know the committee now, it's the same committee that the Board of Ed had formed that went through the town. And so we are coming to the end of that journey.
look forward to it. All right, audience and citizens. I know I only have 3 minutes. Please, some people time me. I have a lot I want to say.
Hi, I'm Debbie Law. I live at 18 Bell Court in Portland. I just want to say that the structure of the meeting is flawed. You vote on things before your citizens have a chance to give a comment. With the book level, I don't care if my 5th grader can read a book that is written for a 20-year-old. I don't want them exposed to that in my school library. That's a parental choice. So that's my feeling on that, and you already voted. And getting back to what Dawn said, I was wondering if a psychiatric APRN could be hired for the district, and they could make those evaluations. That would be a much more cost-effective way to go, and if they could provide those services, that might work. And along with what Dawn said, I want to make sure everybody gets what they need too. That's really important to me. I have to just speak about the Commissioners Network. Have you seen who's on that list? That will affect our property values for generations to come, which will affect our ability to support the school systems. You will have flight from this district if that was to occur. I know it's quick money and it's dangling, and we may not even qualify, but if we do, this is my analogy. Your daughter is invited to a debutante ball. She gets there, and I want to be politically correct in how I say this in case it gets out, but she gets there, and there are 8 young men that she would not want her to date. So that's what I have to say about the Commissioners Network. I think you should do your research very, very carefully. From a superintendent's point of view, it's money that he could utilize. But with all due respect, you don't live in this district. And let me say something else. Just a few days ago, we were a blue ribbon district, okay? In my mind, and I'm a very kind person, but in my mind, I would see the curriculum supervisor change 3 times and the superintendent of schools change twice before we ever went that route. So I just want you to know the severity of that. I also want to say that I think $8,000 for a vending machine for books, which will lose excitement when the next new thing comes around, is kind of a high thing. And I know you want to move to the high school, but I leave earlier than all of you, and I was afraid last time. I was really afraid in the parking lot. Here, the police are right here, and it's also 1 step away to my car. And then we keep putting more and more money into special ed. And believe me, I would drive those kids from Middletown to Portland so they could have the continuity of being in this school district. I don't begrudge money spent on children at all, but if our children were eating less processed foods, if they were getting more sleep each night, 100 years ago they were sleeping 2 hours more a night, it would affect the suicide rates, It would affect the accident rates. It would affect so many things. And I just want you to know, like, I'm a hopeful person. I believe in this country. I believe in the future of our children. But I'm just saying, sometimes we can't see the forest through the trees. We need to start investing in those core things. I think the PIP things were great, but that's like kids saying, I want to eat some candy, okay? As the parents, we have to feed them foreign language K to 12. We have to make sure that just 20% processed food can have such a detrimental effect on your mental health and your physical health. Kids are getting more than that just in school lunches. So thank you for your time and thank you for the work that you do. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Are there any additional comments from folks online?
No, none at this time.
Thank you. All right. Board of Education member comments. Let's zip down the line. Sarah, we'll start over here tonight.
Looking forward to Teacher Appreciation Week next week. I just want to say a big thank you to all of our educators and staff in this district who do a phenomenal job. And also, it's been wonderful to see the art up at the middle school, so thank you for hosting that and continuing to do so.
Yeah, same thing. Appreciate all the hard work the teachers do, and if there's anything I can do to come up next week, if there's any events or anything, be happy to join in if possible. And lastly, I don't know if you mentioned it, Charles, you said May 8th for the facilities meeting, but it's also the referendum day.
Mm-hmm.
Just a reminder to everyone.
Yep, it's a good reminder. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Yes. Jim.
Yeah, I would just say that I appreciate everybody's work tonight and the work everybody came with their presentations. It's very helpful to get. The other comment I have is on the board voted last time on HB 5003 was the letter where we were asking the legislature to provide more funding. And it was, I had taken a pass on that and I didn't vote in favor of it. And my understanding is that we were going to write, a letter would go that would say that there was a majority vote in favor of that. But my understanding is that the letter that went out actually said that it didn't indicate that. It said that the entire town committee voted. I'm sorry, the entire Board of Ed voted in favor of that funding.
I signed it on behalf of the board. I mean, it was a vote, and 6 board members voted to send that letter. We took all the signatures off, as opposed to asking for individual signatures. So it was representative of the board vote to send the letter.
Right. I
don't think there was any wording in there that said unanimous. I don't believe that it said unanimous. If there was, it was an error.
It wasn't unanimous.
I think it just said the board supports.
Okay, I'll go. I had it with me, and now it's not right in front of me, so I'll have to. But that would be my only comment.
Sure.
We had an agreement at that meeting that it wouldn't be.
Yes, and we try to be responsive to that.
Right.
That's why we changed it up and took the rest of the signatures off, so that it was just a kind of on behalf of the Board of Education letter.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Was there anything else? I didn't mean to cut you off, Tim.
No.
Zip over here, Kim.
I really want to give a shout out to the educators for educator appreciation. Every time I go to an event in town, and I had the pleasure of going to the art show last week, I'm just so impressed by the level of dedication of everyone and how they really put their heart and soul into everything they do with educators and how they make relationships with the students. My children who are long past the grades, even though the art teacher there from the elementary school still remembers the names of my children and asks about them. So I just continue to be so impressed by Portland Public Schools. So please pass that along.
All of the above. Just thank you for what you do, and we appreciate you. And yeah, that's it. It's good. Portland is good. Our little corner of the world is good.
absolutely echo everything that everyone's been saying and just call out a few other things. This is the time of year when there just are so many exciting things happening in our district. The art show's been mentioned at the middle school, which was phenomenal. The band and chorus extravaganzas happened last week, which were phenomenal. The middle school personal interest projects that we heard about tonight. The Valley View and Gildersleeve classes are having their end of year concerts, which are just like delightful. And I will say too that Valley View ran their town program for the first time this past week, for the first time in person in, I don't know, 3 years. It's been several years. And so it's just all of these moments that remind us it just puts it in your face, all the wonderful things that have been happening all school year that kind of culminate this time of year. And with Teacher Appreciation Week coming up, it seems like the right time to say thank you to our teachers for helping our students shine, helping all of our students shine. There's just so much joy in what's in the learning and everything that's happening in our schools right now. So thank you to our teachers, and also thank you to the PTOs who put in so much work making the Teacher Appreciation Week happen. So I know I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we're going to need the equipment because that week is usually full of food and everybody overeats. There's some food coming in all week long in most places. You're going to need the equipment.
Yeah. All right. So on that note, I think we will move on. We have an executive session, so I would be looking for.
I'll make the motion.
And yes.
Yeah, I'll make. And do we invite Mike?
Yes.
I'm going to make a motion to the full board that we go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the principal of Brownstone and superintendent school evaluation and the Board of Education self-evaluation. And I would invite Principal Searson and Superintendent Britton to attend the executive session.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thanks, Sarah. Is there further discussion?
Do we want outside attendees when we're talking about evaluations and things of that nature?
No, we'll have Mike join us for a little while, and then we'll ask him to step out and
he goes home and waits.
And then we'll
He's not going to be here for the part of the discussion about the position.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're just going to have an opportunity to talk with him.
You're going to get a chance to talk to him, and then
Okay.
we'll ask him.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did that last year, actually.
Yep. All right. Good
So-
question. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank
Executive
you.
session in 9:07. Thank you, Mrs. Lawson. Thank you, Mr. Hirschhorn. Thank you, Mrs. Davis.